Have you ever made so much money that you ended up wasting some of it? How much did you waste? Was it a few hundred? A couple thousand? How about $2 million? In 1992, the international drug lord Pablo Escobar was on the run from the police when he found himself stuck with his family in the freezing forests of Colombia. His little daughter was suffering the most from the cold, and the only thing he had on him was a bag of money. So, what did Pablo do? He took $2 million from the bag and set it on fire to keep his daughter warm. $2 million. Most people would rather die than burn that amount to survive. And that is because most people will never experience the wealth that Pablo had. Money was never a problem for the drug lord. His only problem with money was where to keep it, and since he didn't trust the banks, the crime boss hid most of his wealth in the oddest of places, in barrels, under fields, and behind walls. And for decades since his death, people have been uncovering these hidden spots, to the point that even his nephew found $18 million of Pablo's hidden wealth. But before we get into this, let's first talk about the fortune of the drug lord and how it came to be in the first place. How did one man amass so much wealth from crime that Forbes magazine had to officially name him the 7th richest man in the world at the time? Where did all that wealth go when he died? And more importantly, how did his nephew find $18 million behind the walls of his house? Pablo Escobar was born and raised in the Colombian city of Medellin. His family was so poor that he had to dabble in petty crimes to survive. By the time he was 20, he was into the Colombian drug scene, and by 26, he had gathered at least $3 million. Then, Pablo created the Medellin cartel, made more money, and bought at least 15 planes. Put simply, Pablo Escobar was doing with hard drugs what John D. Rockefeller did with oil. More than $145 million daily in cash, and an annual income of $55 billion. He was making so much money that his cartel spent over $1,000 every week buying rubber bands to wrap his endless influx of cash. At the same time, they also found themselves losing $2.6 billion of that money to rodents. But we all know how it ended. Escobar was fatally shot in the head by soldiers who discovered where he was hiding. So, with Pablo Escobar dead, everyone began asking a very important yet dangerous question. What happened to Pablo Escobar's fortune? When you die, you can't take your money with you. With the amount of money that Escobar was making, he had to have people he trusted, who could keep up with the movement of his cash flow. And those two people were his oldest brother, Roberto Escobar, and his immediate younger sister, Alba Marina Escobar. These were the only two people he trusted. There are 3 ways of categorizing Escobar's wealth, and we will tell you exactly where each and every one of them went. The first category includes his liquid assets, his cars, money, mansions, clothes, amongst other physical material items. The second category includes all the money he kept in hidden places like underground, caves, behind walls, and in the jungle. The third and final category includes money he hid in banks, which wasn't that much because banks didn't really want to keep his money, and Pablo didn't trust them to begin with. After Escobar's death, his drug empire, unsurprisingly, fell apart. However, his family didn't get much. The wealth that they had was shaken off them by rival cartels as they sought to decimate what was left of Escobar's legacy. So, they spent most of their money on security. At one point, they had to buy out an entire hotel floor so that no one could sneak up on them. Even the government had to step in by filling the hotel with guards that would protect them from Pablo's enemies. But with time, this became too expensive as their money began to run out. To make matters worse, Pablo had not written any will or left any inheritance for his family. They were forced to make do with whatever they could find from the first and third category of his wealth, which wasn't much because other cartels, different governments, and even the local population of Medellin had looted, seized, and stolen what they could from it. The second category was where all the money was. Pablo had billions of dollars hidden all over Colombia, but there was one major problem. No one had any idea where the hidden spots